So the Warriors offseason hasn't gone quite like a lot of us expected. After striking out on multiple big-name trade targets, the Warriors are now expected to go into the season with the roster as is, and maybe make a move on the margin for a big. The team they have now is essentially the team they're rocking with going into the season. So with that being said, here are 10 things that need to go right in order for Golden State to be considered a serious title threat. Let's get into it. The first X factor on this list, Draymond can't be a bozo. He can't be a bozo, bro. If Draymond sabotages the season like he did last season, bro, it's a wrap, bro. It's too insurmountable of a disadvantage to overcome your second best player missing 27 games due to suspension. It's one thing if he was injured and it's something that couldn't be helped, but this dude missed 27 games because he couldn't stop hitting people. Come on, bro. That's inexcusable. Draymond straight up sabotaged the season. And he sabotaged the season before that. And unfortunately, with the way the roster is constructed, Draymond's their second most important player. And this team doesn't have enough talent to overcome Draymond missing games. If he's not playing, they're not winning. The fact that Draymond's their second best player, like that in and of itself is a red flag that this is not a title contender. Now, prime Draymond, that's a different story. But 34-year-old Draymond, that's not good. The Warriors desperately need someone else to slide into that role of second best player on the team, whether it be via trade like they tried to do this offseason, or if one of these young dudes improved enough to be elevated to it. Either way, the Warriors need a talent upgrade, which brings us to our second X factor. Jonathan Kaminga needs to be a near all-star level player. With the way this roster is constructed, they're pretty much banking on Kaminga to take a huge leap this season. Something that's not guaranteed, but coming into year 4, along with the departure of Klay Thompson, this is the runway Kaminga needs to really establish himself in the pecking order. If Kaminga took a big enough leap for him to be considered the second best player on the roster over Draymond, that would be a huge win for Golden State. But that's going to take a lot of improvements from Kaminga. Draymond is by far the more valuable player. His defense, IQ, and playmaking is harder to replace than what Kaminga brought to the team last season. But if Kaminga was to come back an improved three-point shooter, an improved ball handler, an improved defensive player, all of a sudden that makes the conversation more interesting. Kaminga has the archetype of a premier two-way wing, someone along the lines of a Jaylen Brown, a Jimmy Butler. Now, obviously, he has a long way to go before he gets to that point. All I'm simply saying is that's the archetype of player that he's building towards. And the Warriors desperately need him to reach that ceiling. Because if JK comes back the exact same player he was last season, or marginally better, that's not good enough. This Warriors team ain't good enough. And going into year 4, you gotta admit, that would be a huge disappointment if Kaminga didn't improve. Moving on to the next X factor. Brandon Podziemski needs to be a Malcolm Brogdon caliber player next season. I'm not talking about current Malcolm Brogdon. I'm talking about prime Brogdon from like 3 or 4 years ago. Prime Brogdon is a type of secondary ball handler that the Warriors could desperately use. And Podziemski is the closest one to the archetype. So what that means is Poz is going to have to come back and improve score. He's going to have to be a little more aggressive with his three-point shooting. He's going to have to be a little bit more efficient at the rim. Overall, he just needs to be more of a threat offensively. But all the other aspects of his game is already pretty solid. Elite rebounder, solid playmaker. He has a pretty solid basketball IQ. Led the league in charges last season as a rookie. Shot 38.5% from 3. Led everyone on the Warriors in overall plus-minus for the season. He was already a pretty solid role player coming into the league. So any improvements from that would be amazing. The next X factor. Andrew Wiggins needs to transform back into his 2022 form. You know, back when he was an all-star, back when he was the second best player on a title team and was a monster on the glass and was locking up everybody in the playoffs. Had Luka in hell, had Tatum in hell. The Warriors need that version of Andrew Wiggins. If he could tap back into that for this season, that completely transforms his roster because that player was good enough to be the second best player on the title team behind Steph Curry. That's an extremely valuable player. Now, unfortunately, we haven't seen that since, but you gotta hope that it's still in there somewhere. If you combine that Andrew Wiggins with an improved Kaminga, that gives the Warriors 2 high-level wings on the perimeter. Hey, Wiggins, come on, bro. Come on, we know what's in there, dog. The next X factor. The Warriors overall need to stay healthy. Now, I know this one's a little bit of a cop-out because obviously health is important to every team. Every team needs to stay healthy if they want a chance to win the championship. But I feel like with the Warriors, they have so many swing factors that I had to mention it. Anthony Melton, for example, he missed a huge chunk of last season due to a back injury. In the games he did play, he was a shell of himself. So the Warriors need Melton to be fully healthy. The only reason they were able to afford him for $12.7 million is because he was injured last season. But if he's healthy, he's worth way more than he signed for, and the Warriors got one hell of a bargain. He will be a vital two-way presence for the Warriors in the perimeter, matching up with some of the tougher defensive assignments along with Wiggins, which kind of leads into the next X factor. The Warriors need all 3 of their key signings this offseason to hit. That's DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and Buddy Hield. All of them got to contribute. The Warriors did a good job picking up 3 solid role players. Now it's up to Steve Kerr and the coaching staff to integrate them and properly deploy them. I think they're all great fits, and they also have a purpose on this team. So it's really no excuses. The next X factor. Golden State either needs to trade for a big or Quentin Post needs to be ready to contribute. When you look at this roster, it's glaringly obvious they need another big man. Kevon Looney was cooked for half of last season. TJD, who although was promising as a rookie, he did look a little bit lost in that playing game against the Kings. And then you got 6'5", 34-year-old Draymond holding it down in center. They need another body. Like, that's a fact. Draymond 6'5", TJD 6'8", 6'9", Looney 6'9", slow with no hips. That's where Quinton Post comes in. He's a legit 7-footer who also just so happens to be a stretch 5. He's a legit shooter. If you watch any of this tape from college, the dude can shoot. Like after Steph, Buddy, and Pods, he might be one of the best shooters on the team, to be honest with you. Like the kid has skills, and he was a solid rebounder in college. And rebounding is one of the main things that usually transfers to the NBA. So just based off that template, you got a 7-footer that's a good rebounder, and he's also a stretch 5. By the way, he's 24 years old and has 5 years of college experience. So theoretically, he should be ready to go. Now, knowing Kerr, it's going to take a minute to earn his trust. So Quinton Post might spend the first half of the season in the G League. But I'm hoping at some point he at least gets his chance to showcase what he can do. We all remember what happened with TJD last season. Steve Kerr should have been had the rook in the rotation, but he just insisted on playing Looney even though he was cooked. And it was obvious he was cooked. The man was blowing his hips out, smoking layups, getting 2 inches off the ground, bro. And TJD was just glued to the bench. If not Quinton Post, the Warriors got to trade for a big. Jonas Valanciunas has already been rumored as an option for the Warriors, but that would have to be an in-season trade because he's currently not eligible to be traded. I think Valanciunas would be an interesting target. If you want to hear more about my opinion on Valanciunas to the Warriors, I actually addressed it in an earlier video, so check that out. And now for the final X factor. The chef needs to be the chef. Steph Curry got to still be Steph Curry, man. The Warriors can't afford for him to even take a half step back. But judging from the masterclass we just saw in the Olympics, Wardell's still that guy. Steph's still him. He's still at the top of his game. He's still a top 5 player, and if given a proper surrounding talent, he can still take you to the promised land. Even though Steph Curry turns 37 next season, I have all the faith in the world that he can still be the best player on the title team, but he's gonna need some help. So there you have it, 10 things that need to happen if Golden State wants to be a serious title threat this season. And if it sounds like that's a lot that needs to go right for it to happen, that's because it is. The chances of all 10 of these X factors playing in the Warriors' favor is extremely unlikely. Now, can 4 out of the 10 happen and the Warriors still be a threat? It's possible, but it would depend on which ones hit because some are more essential than others. For example, if Steph's still a top 5 player and Draymond's not sabotaging the team, Kaminga takes a leap, and Andrew Wiggins is all-star Andrew Wiggins, just with those 4 X factors coming through, I think the Warriors have a legit shot. They will be extremely hard to put down 4 out of 7 times in the series. We saw Steph Curry win a title with the best version of Andrew Wiggins as the second best player, along with the support of an elite group of role players. Steph doesn't have to be 2022 Steph the entire season, just when it matters most, during the playoffs, during money time. Just give the man a little help from the supporting cast, and it's a chip. Anyways, that's all I got for y'all. If I entertained you or you learned something new, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I'll holler at you on the next one. Peace.